Hello, everybody. My name is Carlos Gonzalez, and I am the founder and CEO of Product School. I'm very excited to be doing this webinar with all of you today. The topic is about how to become a great product manager. And we'll be also taking some questions live, so you can use the chat option that you will have on your right of the screen. Ideally, I would like to take those questions at the end of the presentation, but if you have something very urgent that needs to be discussed right now, you can also do it. I'll be taking a look at the chat while doing this presentation. Well, as I'm going to share my screen, so you can all see what I prepared for you. Recording this webinar, so we'll be making sure that we can share the video with you afterwards. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, I am the founder and CEO of Product School. Product School is an education company that offers product management courses in Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, and New York. So if you are interested in learning more about our training programs, you can check out our website, productschool.com. And something that I would like to share with you is that, especially for the audience that is outside of the US, well, we have a huge Slack community with over 14,000 product people. You can see the URL there, and it's free to join. So just go to productschool.com/slack-community, and you'll be able to participate. We're constantly sharing invitations to online and offline events. We are also sharing content, job offers about product management. I mean, in general, it's a good spot to be and network with other like-minded people. Well, as I mentioned before, Product School has been around for almost 4 years, and we have a total of 6 campuses, and we've graduated over 3,000 students. All of our students are product managers that now are working at top companies such as Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on. So we have a total of 2 campuses in San Francisco area, 3 campuses in the Los Angeles area, and 1 campus in New York. Well, a little bit more about the type of training that we offer to our students. So all of our programs are part-time because they are compatible with regular work schedule. So most of our students are software engineers or marketers or consultants or project managers who have at least 3 years of experience and are trying to switch careers to product management. So they are able to take our classes at night after work or on weekends. And all of the instructors that teach at Product School are real-world product managers that come from Apple, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, Netflix, Uber, Snapchat, and other top companies. They are able to keep their full-time jobs as those companies and teach on the side, the same way all of our students can keep their jobs and learn on the side. So, as you know, becoming a product manager is more and more complex as we grow. And it's not just about understanding the business aspects of the product. Especially for people who don't come from a traditional engineering background, you will realize that they're going to spend a lot of time working with software engineers. So for the folks that don't come from a technical background, we also created a course called Coding for Managers. This course is also 2 months part-time. And the goal here is to make non-technical product managers a little bit more technical so you can better connect with your engineering teams. So depending on the background that you have, you can decide what type of courses are a better fit for you. And along the same lines, we realized that becoming technical is not just about learning more about coding. It's also about learning more about data analytics in this case. So the same way the Coding for Managers course is not intended to make you a software engineer. It's intended to make you more technical. The data analytics course is not intended to make you a data scientist. It's intended to make you a more data-driven manager. So in this class, we focus on teaching you web analytics tools, SQL, and machine learning. All right. Well, I published a book recently on Amazon, and it became a bestseller in the first week. The title of the book is The Product Book, How to Become a Great Product Manager. So you can see on the right side of your screen, on the section that says offers, that we included a link to get this book on Amazon. If you have Amazon Kindle Unlimited subscription, you can get a free copy of the book. And if not, you can also get the physical copy. But we are going to be raffling a copy of the book for everybody who tweets, including at Product School with the hashtag ProdMGMT. So again, you can see it on the screen. You have to include @productschool and the hashtag #ProdMGNT, and then we'll be raffling a physical copy of the book among all the people who participate. I would also include in the raffle everybody who asks questions. So I encourage all of you to ask as many questions as you want. And then in addition, like to answering those questions, we'll also be considering all of you as a potential winner of the book. And then we'll be announcing the winner after this webinar. Okay, so this is me. As I mentioned, I always introduce myself by the name because my last name is very long, Gonzalez de Villaumbrosia. And I'll be running this webinar with you all today. The topic of this webinar is how to become a great product manager. And the content that I use to create this presentation is based on data from our experience helping aspiring product managers become great product managers through Product School. So this is my path. This is how I made it. My original background is a software engineer turned into a product manager, and then I became a CEO. And for me, it wasn't that obvious because, as you know, when you join a technical school, most of the people want to be technical. So I was always there wondering, what are my options if I don't want to code? And I think that having a technical background was very beneficial because that helped me understand how product works at a very low level. And when I started my own companies, I was able to build the first version of the product without having to ask for much help. But obviously, as you grow your companies, you also need to delegate. And at some point, you will need to hire a product manager. So I've started 3 companies in my life. In all of them, I've been the founder and CEO. And I did the exact same thing in all of them. I started as the first person who built the first version of the product. And then I had to hire engineers. And then I had to continue hiring the rest of the function of the company. So I also hired a lot of product managers. But in reality, this sounds very straightforward. It is not that easy. And it's also the case for a lot of other product managers. Like, this is just my path. And I'm sure there are many other paths out there. So I was a student, and then I worked as a software engineer. Then I started a company. Then after starting a company, I went to business school. Then after going to business school, I became a product manager for another company. And then from there, I became a founder again. So with this, I'm just trying to inspire you all to realize that if you are an engineer, yes, that's an option. You can become a product manager from there. But if you are not an engineer, there are so many other options that you can use to become a product manager. And we'll be discussing some of them in the next slides. Now, I'm trying to be as tactical as possible here. So I'm not just going to lay out your options. I'm also going to give you advice on how you can build your skill sets and also prove that skill set in front of your hiring managers. So what's PM? I like to start my presentations by defining product management because all of us use a different definition. And I don't want you to read this. This is just a slide that I took from the Wikipedia that is the boring way of defining what you're going to be doing on a daily basis. Yes, as a product manager, you're going to be listening to your customers and looking at data and talking with your team and other different stakeholders. And then you'll have to decide what's next. And you have to prioritize because obviously you never have as many resources as you would like to do. So after you decide what's next, you have to explain that to your engineering, design, and marketing teams. Then you have to keep track of the progress of those projects to make sure that they are on track and you are keeping cost, quality, and time. And then once you are done with those projects, you also need to communicate the improvements of the product to your users. So hopefully they use your product more and hopefully they also buy your product more. And then based on your learnings after every iteration, you have to decide what's next. You want to improve existing features, kill existing features, or move on, build something new. Anyway, I think it's way easier to define product management as the intersection in between these 3 groups: business, engineering, and design. And by the way, I'm talking about software products. So most of that is websites and mobile apps. I'm sure there is some overlap with other types of products such as hardware or even buildings. But for the sake of the presentation, we are going to be focusing on software products. So when I say engineering, I'm mostly talking about software engineering. And when I say design, I'm mostly talking about UX design and graphic design. Business is a little bit more fuzzy. There are so many ways to define business, although most of these cases we'll be talking about marketing, digital marketing. Okay, so paths to PM. I showed you one that was mine, engineering to product management. But what else are out there? So these are the five most common paths to product management. And again, this is based on data from our students. So most of our students in product school come from software engineering, entrepreneurship, consulting, project management, or marketing. Let me explain each of them a little bit more. But software engineering is self-explanatory. I already talked about it. Entrepreneurship. I've seen so many people that started their companies before, and maybe they didn't have any formal training on how to start a company, but I think that starting a company teaches you a lot about so many different things. And there are a lot of companies in Silicon Valley and other parts of the world that really appreciate that go-getter attitude. So you can think of Google, Facebook, and other big companies. They hire a lot of founders as product managers. The same way, you can see that there are a lot of product managers and bigger organizations that will leave to become their own founders of other startups. So even though entrepreneurship is not like one specific skill set, that's something that helps. Now, here is the catch. If you know that you want to become a product manager, you don't need to start a company just because you want to apply for a job. No, just start a company because you want to be a founder. And if that doesn't work out, yes, there are other options. But do not try to just start a company because you want to become a product manager. The same way, if you know you want to become a product manager, go for it. You don't need to wait and waste time starting a company. Another option that I've seen is extremely popular, and this is also very, very popular in our New York campus. We have a lot of people that come from management consulting, strategy consulting, finance, even operations. So that is usually a really good indicator, because people who work in consulting, they work really hard and they are very analytical and fast learners. So yes, even though their clients may not be like IT companies, that's also a really good option for them to prove that they are open to learn whatever it takes. Obviously, someone who comes from a pure business background will have to learn more about the technical aspects of the product. The same way someone who comes from engineering will have to learn more about the business aspects of the product. But do not get discouraged if you come from management consulting or a pure business background, because that's an option for you to become a product manager. Another option, and this is actually very, very popular and good, project management. I also included program manager because each company will define it in a different way. You can see project manager, technical project manager, program manager, and so on. Right? The common definition here is that you, as a project manager, are going to be managing a timeline with resources and a budget, and you need to make sure that things keep happening according to plan. So that's a very important part of product management. I would say, for me, project management is part of product management. So usually people who come from an engineering or technical background, they find project management as a good stepping stone before they join a company as a product manager. So a quick tip here for all of you looking for a product management job: if that's your first time, I would keep my options open to also project management, program management, or business analyst opportunities, because depending on the company, there's a lot of product management in those roles. So take a look at those job descriptions and do not just discard those options because of the title in the job description. That's actually a good way to break into product. And I see this in many of our students that are very, very passionate about specific companies or industries. If you have to decide, do you want to optimize for your title or do you want to optimize for your company? And if your answer is the later, you prefer to choose a company or industry that you are very passionate about, maybe the solution is to start in an intermediate role before you break into product, rather than getting a product management role in a company or industry that you don't like just because you want the title. Another option is marketing. Mostly digital marketing. There's a lot of digital marketing involved in product management. And so there are actually a lot of titles in product now, like product growth or product marketing manager, that involve a lot of marketing. So I've seen, again, a lot of our students who come from marketing, And now marketing is also becoming more and more technical. So if you are able to put together a landing page and understand how to use A/B testing tools and look at data, and you can also code a little bit, so you can customize an email template to make it responsive with mobile devices and things like that, marketing will be like a really good stepping stone for you to break into product. But let's say you don't feel like you are part of any of the groups that I just described. What else? Is there any other option for me to break into product management? And the answer is yes. And here's some alternative paths to product management. So other types of engineering. Let's say you come from hardware engineering. Well, that's great. Or not just hardware engineering, but civil engineering or any other type of engineering. At the end of the day, being an engineer is a mindset. It's being comfortable in the uncomfortable. Is working hard to solve a problem that has no easy solution, and that is very important for any product manager. So, of course, you will need to learn what you don't have that applies to the software products. But I've seen so many hardware engineers break into product, and they also have an interesting opportunity because there are so many companies that are hybrid between software and hardware. A lot of wearable devices, a lot of IoT companies that really appreciate someone who comes with a hardware background and really understands both hardware and software. So if that's your case, do not feel discouraged, and also try to look for companies that maybe are a hybrid between hardware and software, because that's an option that you have and someone who only comes from software doesn't have. Finance and operations, we also talked briefly about it when I described consulting. That's an option. Support and quality assurance. That is really, really good to mention, because when you're working in support or QA, you're mostly fixing problems. You have a queue of tickets from people complaining, and you need to fix them. And there's a lot of product management in those roles. Obviously, as a product manager, you also need to pick what problems you're going to tackle first. The same way when we were talking about project management, there's a lot of project management in product management. So if you come from one of those fields, I think you don't have to wait to get the title in order to think like a product manager. Like, I've hired so many people that come from QA or customer support, and for me, the best ones are the ones that are not just focused on solving the specific problem that they just received. For me, I'm looking for people who are also looking at how they can change a process to make sure that we can mitigate that problem in the future, or talk to customers to try to escalate this to make sure that the product manager understands that, hey, this is something that is actually important because our customers are talking about it all the time. So keep in mind that if you come from customer support, you can also make it into product management. And it's a pity that I put sales and design at the end, because I wish there were more salespeople and designers trying to break into product. There is obviously some, but I believe that as this role evolves and grows, there should be more salespeople and designers, because as you remember the previous graph that I explained, that product is the intersection between engineering, business, and design. Most of the roles that I described here either come from engineering or business, and design is a critical part for every single product. So keep an eye on design, either you're a designer or if you are not. Okay, now let's talk about other PM roles, because when we say PM, we tend to think of product management, but remember, there is project manager or program manager out there. So as I told you before, there are different stepping stones. There are different roles that are in between product and something else. And if you are not a product manager already, this will be a good option for you. So business analyst, project manager, program manager, those are the roles that we discussed before. Those are usually an intersection in between engineering and product. So if you look at this graph and look at the bottom right of the screen, you see there is project manager right in between product and engineering. So if you come from a technical background, you could qualify for a project manager role. Now, if you come from a business or design background, it's going to be almost impossible for you to become a technical project manager. The same way, if you come from design, you could qualify for product design roles as a stepping stone before you become a product manager. And following the same example, if you come from a business background, you could also qualify for product marketing roles before you break into product. And let me make a comment here. It's like, it also depends on the size of the company. Because if you're in a small company that has, let's say, less than 20 people, I doubt there will be product marketing, project management, or product design. There's not enough to hire those roles. It's the product manager who's going to be doing a little bit of everything. But obviously, as the companies grow and specialize, then you need to hire those intermediate roles. And that's why I think that's an interesting option for you to consider. Like, it's very surprising to me when we discuss this with some of our students. They're so focused on becoming a product manager that they sometimes don't know that there is something like these roles that I just described that are also part of the product team and could be a good option for them. So going back to my slide, I talked about project manager, product marketing, and product design, but I also added product X because now everybody wants to add the word product to their title. And I've seen product operations, and I've seen product engineering. And again, there's so many different titles that I think the best way to go about it is to try to take a look at the job description, because each company will define the responsibilities in a different way. Okay, now let's talk about the product management career, because we all talk about becoming a product manager, but what's next? Let's say you become a product manager, or you are an existing product manager. So kind of what's your career path? What are your options? Well, I think before I show the next slide, I want to just clarify that I see two main options. One option is the corporate ladder, which you will become a senior product manager and so on until you make it to vice president of product. But then there is another option, which is entrepreneurship, like building products you have to decide if you want to build a product for yourself as an entrepreneur, or you want to build a product for somebody else as an employee. Both options are fine. But that's why before I mentioned that a lot of companies hire founders as product managers. The same way, a lot of product managers in bigger organizations end up becoming founders of smaller startups. The mindset is very, very similar. But I just try to present the option for people who are trying to grow as a product manager within an organization. So if you start from the bottom, you'll see that I mentioned APM. That stands for Associate Product Manager. And this title doesn't exist in all the companies. This is a title that was created by Marisa Mayer when she was at Google. She was also the CEO of Yahoo. And the reason behind creating an APM role was that at that time, it was very hard product management wasn't that well defined. And this company, Google, was looking for people with a technical background who were thinking business. And it was so hard to find so many of those roles at that scale that they decided to create an internal program to train some of their software engineers and make them product managers. Obviously, that term has expanded, and there are so many other companies that offer those type of internal training programs. So Google is one of them, but we also have Facebook, we have Intuit, we have Yahoo, LinkedIn, Yelp, and others. They all have their own APM programs or rotational programs that consist of 6 to 12 months of training. They usually get fresh grads or people with less than 3 years of experience, mostly people with technical backgrounds, but not only. And they put them through different products to teach them how the company works. And then after their training period, they extend them an offer as product managers. Well, that's great if you have the opportunity to join one of those companies. And I've also seen other companies that they create opportunities as an associate product manager that doesn't involve like a 6-month training, but that's a very common title for an entry-level product management role. Now, other companies don't have that, and their entry-level role is called product manager, which is fine. I try to define kind of the salary expectations based on dollar amounts because each company will have their own. But I think this could also help you understand a little bit more about what could be your salary expectations. And also, it really depends on the country where you are, the city, and so many other factors. I really like this website called glassdoor.com, where you can see the average salary per role and many other variables. So if you are really interested into learning more about salaries and compensations in product, I recommend you to go to that website. It's called glassdoor.com, and you can find more information. But let's say APM or product manager is the entry-level position for a product person. And then what's next? Senior product manager. The difference between a product manager and a senior product manager is literally the years of experience. I think after 2-3 years, you can consider yourself a senior product manager. But in terms of responsibilities, it's pretty much the same. You're still going to be working directly with business people, engineers, and designers. Maybe as a senior product manager, they give you bigger responsibilities in terms of the product that you're going to be managing, for example. But at the end of the day, it's going to be very, very standard. Now, the biggest change happens after senior product manager. It's a director of product or group product manager. Because at that point, you become manager of managers. You are going to be managing product managers, and these product managers are the ones who are going to be working directly with business, design, and engineering. So you see the difference. As a product manager or senior product manager, you work directly with engineering, design, and business. But as a group product manager, you are a manager of product managers. And again, if you are in a startup or a small organization, those titles may vary. You may be the VP of product, but in reality, you are not really managing anyone. So take this with a grain of salt. But this is mostly applicable to bigger organizations. After director of product, VP of product, at that point, it also depends on the amount of products that your organization has, because as the company grows, they will also create a portfolio of different products. So at some point, someone will have to own not just one specific product line, but the whole roadmap of the products of the company. So depending on the company, they will use these different titles. But I would like for you to take a look at this CPO title that I added. This is something that is becoming more and more popular. This stands for Chief Product Officer, because before, product used to be a function under engineering or under marketing, and now product is its own function, who in most of the cases reports directly to the CEO. So it's good to know that there is something called CPO. So when you look at it and see it out there, now you know what it means. And then I also added CEO because in tech companies, the CEO is the ultimate product manager. It's really hard for a CEO to give a product, and I know based on experience that we always want to be very hands-on with the product and make decisions and propose ideas. At the end of the day, the product is your baby, and it's hard to not pay attention to it. So I put either $4 or $1 if you are the founder, because hey, if you are starting your own company, you are the founder and CEO, and yes, the product person for that. Maybe you're not making a lot of money, but I can guarantee you are learning a lot. Now let's talk about types of product managers, because even though we're talking about software products, there are also many different software products. Let's take a look at this example. Starting from the top, B2B versus B2C. This stands from if your company is selling to other companies or your company is selling to end users. It's very different ways of doing product. If you are working, let's say, at a company such as Salesforce or Oracle that is selling, so basically the users of that product are not the same as the people who pay for that product, because when you are using a CRM such as Salesforce or any other or similar SaaS product, someone from the finance team or HR team will authorize that. But that doesn't mean that that person is going to use the product. In the example of Salesforce, Salesforce is a tool for people who work in sales. And you are going to be, as a product manager for a product like that, you need to optimize for the users, but you also need to keep in mind that the user in this case is different from the customer who's paying for your licenses. While in B2C products, the person who's using the product is typically the person who's paying for that product. Other examples are, well, if you are a product manager at a startup versus a product manager at a large company. In startups, you're wearing multiple hats. So if you remember the previous slide where I discussed the intermediate roles like project management, product marketing manager, product designer, that doesn't exist in a startup. The product manager is pretty much doing everything, and the goal when you are building something at that stage is to find is to find a product market fit. So you are going to be building a lot of stuff and breaking things and moving fast until you get some traction with something. While as a product manager in a larger organization, your product is already working and has some traction. So your goal here will be to optimize things that already work versus when you're in a startup where you don't really know what works and you need to create things faster. And again, there is no right or wrong option. This is a way for me to show you options. And especially if you're trying to break into product management, my suggestion is that you try to apply to companies that are within your industry or category. So if you have experience working in B2B, let's say, even if you are not a product manager yet, let's say you work in marketing in a B2B company, it'd be easier for you to become a product manager in a B2B company than in a B2C company. Because even though you don't work as a product manager yet, you know a lot about the product that you are marketing. And the same applies to these other categories. So when you are in a company, you also need to understand that you can qualify for multiple categories. So depending on the company you are applying, you could leverage the fact that your company is B2B, but you could also say that your company is large, or you could also say that your company has a mobile app. So with this, I hope that you can get the point of knowing that there are different types of products, technical products versus consumer-facing products. There are marketplaces versus software as a service and other options. There are web products versus mobile products. And it's important for you to know that, yes, we are talking about product management, but there are so many different areas of product that this is important to keep in mind. Because if you just try to apply to anything, it's going to be almost impossible for a recruiter to recognize the value that you can bring to the table. In any case, there is always some skill sets that I've seen across the board that are critical for any product manager. And obviously, those are the ones that we train, that we teach in our courses. And it's important to recognize them because even if you don't have all of them yet, if you want to grow in your career as a product manager, this is something that will catch up with you. So let me explain each of them. Technical background, domain expertise, and communication skills. Technical background, what I mean is being technical enough to be able to work with your software engineers. So if you come from a software engineering background, that's great. You already proved that you know that. But that's not the only way to prove your technical background. So let's show some other options. As I said before, you don't need to have a computer science degree, but if you have it, that's great. You don't need to know how to code like a professional, but you should definitely know the basics. What you need to do is to understand the product at every single level and have the ability to earn the respect of your engineering team. Imagine if you have no idea about how the website or mobile app is built. You don't really understand the difference between front end and back end. What's a database? What's an API? How is it possible that you are going to influence a technical team on what's the right solution for the product? So it's really, really important that you keep this in mind, because my message to you here is not to study engineering if you're not an engineer yet, but try to learn more about coding in this case. And let me show you some options. So you have that cheap option, which is online, and actually most of those courses are free. So Udacity, Code Academy, iTunes University, and many others. I mean, you can go to Google and type how to build a website with HTML or any other programming language, and they will find so many different tutorials. I don't think the value is in the tutorial itself. It's more like in the commitment that you put to make it happen, because it's really easy to give up. This is something hard, and that's why it's in demand. So if you are serious about learning how to code, I encourage you to find something to not let you give up, because trust me, it's not very easy. Now, let's say that you are like me, that you prefer to have an offline commitment and put things on the calendar. Well, there are many options. Obviously, as I mentioned before, we offer a course called Coding for Managers to teach you exactly how to be more technical, but not to make you a software engineer. There are also other options like coding bootcamps that are very serious about making you a software engineer. Those courses are 3 months, full-time, and they teach you how to become an engineer. I honestly believe that you don't need that if you want to become a product manager, but either an online option or something offline but lighter like product school would be a better fit. But there's also a hybrid option like finding an online mentor. There are websites like Code Mentor, Thinkful, or Block.io that offer you a lot of not only online content but also weekly check-in with a mentor via Skype or Google Hangout. So this way you still keep yourself accountable because it's so easy to give up when just watching online videos about how to code. And some other practical options like, hey, you can ask your engineering team or people who work in engineering. You can take them out for lunch and try to ask them questions about how a website works and how they do their work. And they'll be more than happy to explain you. Or the fifth option is really hardcore, is try to do it yourself. I think there is no reason these days not to try to get some help. But hey, if you just want to open a blog edit and a notes editor and try to code, good luck. And this slide is about how you can prove it, because this is a question that you will get when you are interviewing for a product management role. Like, what's your experience? What's your technical background? Like, what's your experience working with engineers? And you can't just say, well, I took this online course 5 years ago, and yes, but how can I see it? And the best way to prove your technical background is if you can show something that you've built. And if you already have your personal website or mobile app, that's great. Maybe it's not pretty, maybe it's not perfect, but it's yours. And the goal for a product manager is not to become the best coder, but to prove that you can learn something fast. And I think that will mean a lot for the recruiter. Another option is if you can create a GitHub account or other repositories and contribute to open source projects or other types of projects. We have a lot of students that participate in hackathons. So these weekend events where they team up with different people to build something together just for fun, but they are able to put together something relatively quickly, and it's them. And this is very powerful. The other option is obviously to take a course like the ones that we have, or as I said before, ask your engineering team. Let's see if they can give you access to the development environment, or you feel capable of fixing some easy bugs and maybe seeing their GitHub accounts or their project management tool, something just to understand more about their life. I think this is something that you are going to need to understand, especially if you don't come from an engineering background. And you can also ask your engineers to let you throw some SQL queries if you want. That was the first point, technical background. But this is the second point, domain expertise. What I mean by having a domain expertise is knowing everything about your product. As a product manager, you are going to be the advocate of the user. So you really need to believe in your product. And it's not just because you want to get a job. It's also because you really, really need to stay ahead of the competition, really be smart about deciding what's going to be built next. So just in case you were wondering, you don't need an MBA, although if you have an MBA, that's fine. The same way as if you have a CS degree, that's fine. You also don't need to sell like a pro. You need to know everything about your industry, competitors, customers, market, absolutely everything. So you can build solutions for your customers. And obviously the end goal is for your customer, once you build enough customers and generate enough value, to capture some of that value. But if you don't build something that people love, you can't really monetize it. That's the message that I'm trying to send here. Now, that sounds great, but how can I get that domain expertise? Well, if you work, as I mentioned before, let's say you work on an e-commerce company, but your title is not marketing, it's not product, it's marketing, or it's engineering, or it's design. Well, at least I'm sure you know a lot about e-commerce, because that's what you do on a daily basis. And think of the same for SaaS products, marketplaces, mobile web, whatever. You can also use some of those products. This is especially easy if you are trying to apply for B2C type of product. So let's say you don't work in e-commerce, but you love shopping online. I'm sure you have a lot of opinions about what type of websites you like, and shopping experience, and email recommendations that you get, and so on. So that's another way to get yourself educated about products. There's so much content out there. You can also read or study industry-related content. You can attend to so many conferences and events, especially if you are in Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, or New York. There's so many conferences about different technologies and products. We're actually launching the product conference by Product School in 2018. It's going to be it's actually going to be 3 conferences. One will be in San Francisco, Q1, second will be in New York in Q2, and the third will be in Los Angeles in Q3. And I'll be happy to share more information in the Q&A if you want to. Not just conferences, but smaller meetups are also a good option. So if you go to meetup.com or eventbrite.com or your local directory online, I'm sure there's so many events out there where you can find information about not just product management, but also different products and industries that you like. And online, there's so many options. Obviously, the Creative Product Managers community is a good resource for people trying to learn more about product. We also have a community on Slack that I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation. It has over 14,000 product people. We have a very big Facebook group called Product Managers that has over 15,000 members as well. Obviously, you can use Twitter to follow influencers. So these days, there is no excuse to identify influencers, conferences, and content. I think the challenge is to filter so you can focus on the stuff that matters to you and not have to waste too much time consuming content that is not very, very relevant. Now, how can you prove your domain expertise? Because saying that you went to a conference is obviously not going to be enough. Or saying that you use a product a lot is not going to be enough. You don't want, and this is another common question that you will get in any interview. They ask you about, okay, but why do you want to build this? Why do you want to join this company? Why are you passionate about this type of products? And you need to prove that it's not just a typical answer. Oh yeah, because the culture of this company, or because this company is fast growing and I want to be part of a fast growing company. Yeah, everybody wants to be in a company that is growing fast and making money and it's cool. But you want to avoid to participate in a typical brainstorming session. If someone is asking you about, well, how could you improve this product? You want to be knowledgeable about it. And it's really hard to fake it. So that's why as a product manager, you need to believe in the product. And obviously everybody, if I could choose, I would want for everybody to believe in the product. But honestly, just think about it. If you hire someone in the engineering team who doesn't believe in the product, well, I mean, it's not the end of the world, because at the end of the day, they are coding. But if you are going to be in between engineering and design and marketing, you are going to be trying to push the boat in the same direction and connect different dots and translate messages between one team and the other. You are becoming like a connector of all of them. And if you don't do your job well, it's not easy to replace a product manager, because you are impacting so many other teams that it's a very, very hard to find position. So to try to avoid just spamming companies just to apply and see if you are lucky, because it doesn't happen that way. The same way I ask you to learn a little more about how to be more technical, I encourage you to be as specific about the companies that you want to apply, and that you can use the framework that I mentioned before about the type of products out there. And last but not least, the communication skills. The same way engineers, the same way business people, marketers, consultants struggle with the technical aspects of the product. Here, this is for engineers who struggle a little bit more with the communication and aspects of the product. So let me explain a little bit more. You don't need to be a public speaker or book author. The same way you don't need to have an MBA. The same way you don't have a computer science degree. But you need to be resourceful. You need to be able to help your team. You need to be able to create value and then capture part of that value, like going back to building something that customers love. And communication is critical, because when you work as a software engineer or designer or marketer, let's say when you work as a specialist, you're going to spend at least 80% of your time executing and only 20% of your time communicating and planning. And as a manager, that's the other way around. You're going to spend 80% of your time communicating, planning, managing, and it's only 20% of your time that will be spent on execution. So the solution to most of the problems is not let me do it myself. The solution to most of the problems is let me teach you so you can do it better than me at some point in the future. And that's the way your teams can grow. And it's important that you block time on your calendar or Notepad or whatever system you use to think, to plan, and to communicate. Because as your company grows, there are going to be a lot of silos. And you are the one who's going to be unlocking those silos and making sure that everybody understands what's next and why, even if they disagree. Now, how can you improve your communication skills? Well, when possible, the first 2 points are very, very actionable, and you can do them today. When possible, choose in-person meetings or phone interactions over emails. I know it's not always easy, and you think that you can get things done faster by sending emails, but you'll be surprised that sometimes a lot of emails can get misunderstood. And if you could pick up the phone and call this person or schedule an in-person meeting, could take more time in the short term, but it will pay off. Another advice here is that if you are like me, you have to send a lot of emails on a daily basis, I would recommend you to read your emails twice before you send them. Like before you click the button send, just do a quick read again. You will be surprised how many times you will want to edit a couple of things to make them sound better or clearer. So this is obviously very basic, but that could help. Now, a couple of things that are more complex. So try to document everything that you do. Try to keep track of the next steps. Try to use your calendar or your project management tool or whatever system your team uses to make sure that everybody's on the same page. You can't just rely on, oh, but in this meeting I told you or you told me this. No, everything has to be documented. And this may sound silly if you are in a smaller company where everybody's in the same room, but it's absolutely critical as you scale. And things like content management systems or wikis or just documentation of meetings are necessary for any growing company. So if you can become that person who people can trust and they know that you document things, that you take notes, that you are there for them, that's very, very powerful. If you want to improve your communication skills, you can try to write on Quora, Twitter, or any other forums like groups on LinkedIn and so on. Nobody wants you to fail, and everybody wants to find good content. So I understand that the first time that you create a blog article, it may not be perfect, but it's yours. And you can only improve your writing skills by writing more. And that's a good way to do it. And you don't need to build a website from scratch in order to create an article. You can rely on medium.com or Quora or any other platforms and see. And if you get so much into it that you feel like you want to build your own platform, you can always do it later. I briefly mentioned this other tip before, which is joining events like hackathons. This is not your typical event where you just sit down and listen. This is an event where every single participant has to build something, and you have to team up with people. And it's a very interesting experience because you don't need to ask for permission. You can become the product manager for the weekend and build that product, even though in your daily job, you are not a product manager. So there's no excuse these days to not try to do something different. Now, what you have to keep in mind is this: becoming a product manager is so competitive. You're going to be competing with existing product managers and aspiring product managers that you can't just expect to get a new job by applying online and waiting for the best. You really need to step up your game and go to more conferences, increase your networking, build something, increase your online presence, create your blog, use LinkedIn, whatever that is. But getting a job is a job itself, and it doesn't need to be a full-time job. But at least in my case and the case of my students, I work with them and I always encourage them to block time during their week to work on their personal brand. Because otherwise, it's really, really hard to make a good decision. And if you just go to, let's say, LinkedIn.com or Indeed or AngelList, whatever website that you use to find jobs, and you start clicking on apply now, apply now, apply now, it's really hard. It's really hard. You definitely need a system. And that's also a good way that you can use to explain a potential recruiter that you are treating yourself as a product, and you are following a system, and you are increasing your personal brand, and you are practicing your interviews, and you are even getting mentors that can help you prepare. Now, how can you prove your communication skills? Well, as I mentioned before, you write consistently, you will get better. Done is better than perfect. You can obviously take notes and use technology to keep track of your work. You can take care of your online presence on LinkedIn. Basic things such as using a professional photo for your LinkedIn profile, writing your summary on LinkedIn. There's so many little details that we recruiters use to make decisions. Like these days, it's really hard for me to review resumes. I can get enough by looking at LinkedIn profiles. So if I can see a good photo with a good summary, with good recommendations, I'm going to be inclined to take a look at your resume and have a good impression about your resume. While if I see a half-empty profile on LinkedIn, or I try to Google your name and I can't find absolutely anything, I may not even take a look at your resume. And if I do, my first impression is not going to be great. And the last point is if you participate in other activities, side projects, mention that. That's great. If you like to play in group sports, if you like to help others, mentor others, you should definitely mention that, because that means a lot. Now, what's the job step? This is the last slide of the presentation. What's the product management job process? Let's say you are serious about getting a product management job and you are thinking about how to start. What's the system that our students at product school use? Here it is. So you have to treat your job search as a job itself. And I create this reverse pyramid. If you look at the top of the pyramid, you will see that the first step in any job search is to send your resume or your LinkedIn profile. And then as you go down the pyramid, obviously there are less and less and less companies until the very end, which is the number of companies that will send you an offer. So if you look at the left column, you'll see that in the first stage of this pyramid, I mentioned that you have to have between 30 to 50 companies there. You have to apply. If you want this system to work, you need to put enough companies on top of the funnel. If you're just going to be applying to a couple of companies here and there, then you don't need a system. But I would definitely recommend you to do this. And by the way, when I say 30 to 50 companies, I'm not just talking about the typical companies just because you like them. You know, like you have to be realistic with your expectations. And if you haven't been a product manager yet, maybe you can't just say, well, I like Facebook, Google, Snapchat, Airbnb. I mean, maybe there is a reason why you should add them to the list, but I would also encourage you to take a look at companies within your industry, companies within your product category, companies that you know someone inside, companies within your location, within your salary expectations. So you have to do your research. And there are so many websites out there. I personally like AngelList if you are looking for startups. I like LinkedIn or Glassdoor if you are looking for not just startups but other bigger organizations. I'm sure there are so many other different websites depending on the region that you are. Point is, start with those 30 to 50 companies and then try to move them down the funnel. So usually after you send your resume, your LinkedIn profile, someone will review it. This first gatekeeper is usually a recruiter, if not a product manager. And they're going to be looking for specific keywords and accomplishments in order to give you the chance to talk to them. So first job here is to optimize your LinkedIn and your resume to maximize the number of phone calls that you can get. And typically for, let's say, if you start with 30 to 50 companies, you'll get anywhere between 10 to 15 phone calls. So it's a pretty big cut there. After that first phone call, you'll probably be invited to an in-person meeting. In those meetings, depending on the company, I've seen companies that try to pack the number of meetings in the same day. So if you can make it to that meeting, you may be interviewing with someone from the engineering team, you may be interviewing with someone from the design team, marketing team, product team, obviously. Other companies will invite you for a couple of interviews first, then they invite you again for another round. We'll see. What's becoming more and more common is to send you a challenge or a test. They want to see how you think. Like the same way designers have a portfolio or engineers have a GitHub account or a place where they can show their code. As a product manager, you will also need to prove what you've done. And if you are an existing product manager, well, that's easier because you can show your previous product. But if you are not a product manager yet, you definitely need to build your portfolio. And that's something that we do at product school. We have our students build a product as part of their course. So in addition to getting certified, which is another bonus point, they also build a feature, and they create the roadmap and the wireframes and the go-to-market strategy. So this way they get used to real life. And you, by the way, when you apply to companies, and if you've been in this stage before, you'll see that most of the companies will ask you same questions. And if they send you a challenge, most of the cases you can apply the same template, because even though each company will apply product management in a different way, we all use the same framework. So it's important that you understand the lingo and the tools. And once you get into the game, then it gets much easier. But anyway, this is not an easy job, and it usually takes anywhere between 2 to 6 months to get your dream product management. And it's also going to happen, it's only going to happen if you put at least 3 to 5 hours of work per week. Again, this is mostly for aspiring product managers. If you're an existing product manager, this may take less. But yeah, they just keep in mind that if you start with 30 to 50 companies, you will only get anywhere between 1 to 2 job offers, which is little. But that means that you have to put a lot of work. And with this, I just want to wrap up this part of the presentation and take some questions from the audience. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and try to take some of the questions. Okay, here. So Sabina, do I think about the future of PM roles? If you think about product management 10 years ago, it almost didn't exist, or people didn't know about it. It was either engineers or business people who kind of owned this, but nobody really took full ownership of the product. The more engineers, the more technology companies, the more need for a product manager. The ratio between engineers and product is usually 7 to 1. So for every 7 engineers, there is usually 1 product manager. And if you look at the numbers, you'll see that the demand for software engineers is going to almost double in the next 10 years, which means there's going to be even more and more demand for product managers these days. So I'm very positive on the demand for product. Now, David is asking about, there are so many listings for PM roles, yet competition for these roles is extremely fierce. Are you able to provide some insights into what is the case? Yeah, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of competition. You're competing with existing and aspiring product managers. And I hope some of the tactics that I described about how you can increase your technical background, domain expertise, and communication skills can work. Jorge is asking me about, what about technical or account manager who took the product to market? And yes, I mean, when I mentioned some of the roles or paths into product management, obviously engineering, entrepreneurship, consulting, project management are the most common backgrounds. But I've seen people coming from support, account management, sales, that have a lot of experience interacting with customers. And that is a key part of your job. So you definitely need to highlight that aspect of feeling comfortable interacting with user, getting feedback, and then providing solutions to them. If you are a technical account manager, which means you also understand technology and have experience working with engineers, that's even better. So that's a good background. Suhasan asked me about what can a budding PM show there. I don't understand what you mean by this. But I created a couple of slides where I showed how can you show your technical expertise, your domain expertise, and your communication skills. If you want something more specific, I think LinkedIn these days is becoming extremely popular to show that, and you can connect your LinkedIn to your portfolio. So you can create either your personal website on WordPress or Squarespace or any of these platforms that don't require code. You can also build your own website using code, which is even better because it proves that you also had to learn how to code a little bit. If you come from a design background, you may want to use something like Dribble or one of these design repositories. If you come from a technical background, you may want to use GitHub. But I think it's good that you can connect different platforms to show that you also understand the ecosystem. If you come from marketing or you are good at writing, you may want to connect medium.com. We are open to the tools. They change all the time, but it's important for a product manager to be up to date and be able to understand how to connect all of them. Cynthia is asking me about, she's an MBA with an industrial engineer background and consulting. So she's asking me if she should target APM roles in order to break into product, or if she could apply for PM roles with 1 to 3 years of experience. I would say both. Because as I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, each company will define this in a different way. So you don't really know. I would take a look at the job description, because some of the APM roles are just for fresh grads without any experience or less than 3 years of experience. If you qualify for them, great. There are other companies that will still get APMs with a little bit more of experience. I think your background as an engineer with an MBA and also in management consulting kind of covers everything except design. So you have options. Arcana is asking me about some tips to successfully transition from software engineering to product management. I think I mentioned a lot, but also I write a lot on Medium and Quora. So if you go to Quora.com and type product school, you're going to find a lot of answers, and that's actually one of the answers that I created. So while I answer other questions, I'm going to try to find it so I can also share it on the chat. Daniel is asking me about what are the main challenges of product management. Well, I think it's important that as this role grows, we also need to become more specific about the types of products that we are going to be building. So the fact that you are a good product manager at a B2C product on a website doesn't make you a great B2B product manager for a mobile app. I mean, obviously you understand the differences and there are things that you can reapply, but I started seeing now not just roles in product, but I can see product manager for growth in a marketplace, or product manager for a technical product with a background in data. So this is kind of going to be refined more and more with time, especially here in Silicon Valley, where there's obviously more and more demand for product. Brad was asking me if I think that having an MBA is a prerequisite to become a product manager at a large company, and I think I addressed this before. No, obviously not. I also know that some big companies go to business schools to recruit people from there. So Amazon, for example, or Intuit are examples of that, but you don't need an MBA to become a product manager. Sabina is asking me, what's the best master that where I can learn about product management? I mean, product school is definitely the only school that is absolutely focused on product management. And it's not a master's. You don't need to spend 2 years and $200,000 full time. This is a 2-month part-time program that you can take on the side, so you don't have to quit your job. And we also have additional courses, so coding or data analytics if you don't come from a technical background. And in those courses, we also help you connect with companies that are hiring. Your instructors are real-world product managers from top companies that are also acting as mentors throughout your career. So, I mean, in my opinion, definitely this is the way to go. Luis is asking me, to start as a PM, is it better to start in a big company or a small company? Well, honestly, smaller companies are not for everybody because you need to wear multiple hats. And first of all, a lot of companies, small companies don't hire product managers because it's the CEO who's one of the founders who's acting as the product manager. So you are going to find more opportunities in medium to large organizations because obviously as the company grows, there are more open roles. I think that joining a smaller company will teach you a lot. And maybe even if it is not, maybe you don't have the title of product manager, being a smaller company will teach you a lot and that will give you access to the whole picture. And also obviously in a smaller organization, in a bigger organization, you will have more access to mentoring and proper training. So I think that if you could choose, you want to be a product manager, I would definitely focus on medium to large organizations because of that training aspect. I have another, let me see. I have another question from Deborah. What are the top 3 hard skills and top 3 soft skills required to be a product manager? I think I covered that exactly in the presentation. So the top 3 skills are technical background, domain expertise, and communication skills. And I'll be sharing this video and slides with all of you, so you can also review the content in there. And then I think I have one more questions from Daniel, how is being a product manager at a larger company different from being a product manager at a startup? I think I briefly covered that in the presentation. So in a startup, let's say the way I define startup versus larger organization is if you hit product market fit. So let's say you are at a point where you know that something is working and now you need to focus on making more of that so you can get more users, which is example of a large organization, versus being a startup, which is you don't really know what's working. You are trying to build a lot of stuff to figure out if there's something that works. And then once you find it, hopefully you can double down on that. So if you're going to be in a startup, you're going to be wearing so many different hats and you don't have enough time to really focus on any of these techniques. So one day you'll be doing a roadmap, but that roadmap can't be longer than 2 months because you don't really know what's going to happen after 2 months. And you're also going to be creating some wireframes because the designer left and now you are acting as kind of the designer, and you're also going to be with engineers. While in a larger organization, you have your design team who will do the wireframes for you. You have your marketing team who will do the promotions for you. I mean, I'm not saying that being in a large organization is easier, because obviously there are other challenges and more politics, like getting buy-in. It will be harder because you have to influence so many other people. While if you're in a startup and you're with your colleague and both of you agree, you go for it. So in my experience, I've worked mostly with startups, and that's what I love. But a lot of our students, they join big organizations, and all of our instructors, that even if they work at top companies such as Google, Facebook, or Uber, a lot of them, they also build their own startups or join startups. So I like that in our classes, we try to show examples about different products and company sizes. Anyway, this was everything that I wanted to share with all of you today. Just as a quick reminder, if you tap on the click on the tab that says offers, you can find a link to the product book that is on Amazon that I published a month ago, and it became a bestseller on product management. And also, if you want to learn more about product school or you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can type Carlos Gonzalez de Villaumbrosia or Carlos Product School, and you will find me on LinkedIn, or just go to productschool.com and I'll be happy to share more information. Thank you all very much, and I hope you learned something new today. Bye.